Boom! A big day of news out of the Moncrief complex continues, this time on the recruiting front as Texas adds to the 2027 recruiting class. I'm Jeff Howe. He's CJ Vogel. This is a special edition of On Texas Football. And CJ, Texas adds a member of the 2027 class, JT Geraci, tight end out of Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey.
Absolutely. A big addition. Again, you look at the top five, Jeff. I look at which schools are after prospects before I ever look at rankings. And you see Ohio State, Alabama, Vanderbilt, and Notre Dame. They know a thing or two about tight ends. That was the top five, including the Texas Longhorns for Gerassi. I mean, I think that's a fantastic top five. Texas ends up winning this one. He was on campus earlier this year, September 15th or 13th, for the UTEP game. 6'5", 230 pounds, plenty of room to grow. You see the vertical passing ability here as we start showing the highlights. Big time ability in the passing game, which is something we've continued to see be a priority when it comes to Texas evaluating the tight end position.
Yeah, CJ, you look at the last couple of cycles where Texas has taken a tight end. Look, obviously, they would have loved to have had Mark Bowman. I think everybody in the country wanted Mark Bowman at tight end. But you end up with Charlie Gillette in the class of 2026, who's maybe more of an inline guy, who's going to be a developmental type guy. But JT Geraci, like you said, he's kind of more, for lack of a better comparison on the fly, maybe a little more Jordan Washington, where he's going to come in as more of a receiver first, who you're going to have to get used to playing with his hand on the ground, being an inline guy. But CJ, one thing I will say though, and this is just typical when you look, if you're recruiting out of state and you're going into New Jersey, chances are you're either going to Bergen Catholic, which is where Texas went to get Sadir Mitchell a few cycles ago, or you're going to Don Bosco Prep. CJ, this is one of those programs nationally, when you talk about high school football, you can't be a soft football player and play a lot for Don Bosco. So at least being a willing blocker, willing to put your face in there, that's something JT Geraci brings to the table.
Look, and I think Texas fans are going to be really excited watching a number of, that pancake right there, a number of these highlights here, Jeff, are him doing exactly that, putting guys into the dirt, pile driving them backwards. That's what you hope to see out of your tight ends. And we've talked about it. It's very difficult for tight ends who are known as more wide receivers to then grow into the blocking ability, one as pure ability to do so, but more than that, the want to go hit somebody that's 40 or 50 pounds, heavier than you. But seeing what I'm seeing, obviously, on the tape here, and what folks will continue to watch in Geraci's tape is, hey, he welcomes contact. That's a guy who, at, again, 6'5", 230 pounds, will grow into another 20 or 25 pounds by the time he's ready to touch the field at the University of Texas. But again, that mentality to go out there and want to hit somebody, that checks a box for me. You mentioned that Northeast side as well, Jeff. He was an all-Bergen County selection in 2025 as well as a junior. That's not an easy thing to do, as we talked about in that area. And I have to imagine that connection to the Northeast for Kyle Flood helped kind of kick that door open as Texas lands a 2027 commit here.
And CJ, you talked earlier about, hey, who did you beat out for this kid? Who were you competing against? Who offered? I know you've run down some of those schools, but I just want to reiterate, look, when you're going after a tight end that Notre Dame has offered and really wants, and a tight end that Alabama has offered and really wants, that tells you you've got, regardless of what the star ranking says, you've got a quality prospect.
But yeah, look at it. I mean, Vanderbilt, of those teams, Jeff, probably doesn't have the most illustrious history when it comes to football, but Eli Stauer is probably going to be the number 1 or number 2 draft pick at the tight end position. They have a number 2 guy right now that's going to be selected as well. And then again, Notre Dame, what do they do with tight ends? Well, we know that they're very, very talented at that and developing tight ends. I also want to go back to his family as well. His older brother played at Michigan, tight end there. Older brother as well played at Dartmouth, another tight end. So one, they know a thing or two about playing big league tight end football. On top of that, look, that's a pretty good family tree as well, Jeff.
CJ, when we look at the Texas depth chart, it's really interesting because as we sit here right now recording this, and at the time JT Geraci committed, we're still waiting a decision on Jack Injuries, whether he's going to go to the NFL or come back to Texas for another year. But you look at that tight end room, you're still going to have Jordan Washington still going to be around. You're still going to have Nick Townsend for a couple more years. You're still going to have Amari Winston for a few more years. We mentioned Charlie Gillette as a kind of a developmental type guy. CJ, this is a tight end room that it's gotten healthy under Sark. It wasn't in a state of disarray under some of the previous regimes. It's just that some of those coaches either didn't have the offensive scheme to take advantage of the tight ends or just didn't take advantage of the tight ends. You've got an offense now, whether it's been JT Sanders or Gunnar Helm, that they've shown they will use the tight end throwing the football. This to me just adds a nice piece to a room that's really got some stability right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest key is finding ways to make sure that the numbers align with what you hope to do in the room. And tight end is a very tricky spot when it comes to getting youngsters on the field early, right? I kind of lean you don't want to. You don't want to do it, right? It's much like playing an offensive lineman as a true freshman. It's just a very difficult position to know that, one, the physicality is going to be there, and two, the size and the mass will align with what you're seeing on the flip side of the line of scrimmage. But if you have that physicality and that want to, we saw it. Hey, Nick Townsend got on the field immediately. Amari Winston made some big plays in the passing game for the University of Texas in 2025. Doing that as true freshmen, it shows that there's a willingness. But on top of things, and this is where I think you mentioned it earlier, Jordan Washington, Charlie Gillette will fall into this, and of course the two freshmen this past year, that developmental track is all different with tight ends. And seeing the frame right now at 6'5", 230 for Gerassi, I think is very encouraging, knowing, again, he'll add 20 or 25 pounds before he's tasked with ever hitting somebody across in a different uniform for the University of Texas. One thing that remains constant, Jeff, is the ability to catch the football out of down the field in the vertical pass game. That's something that we know won't go away with Sarkisian.
CJ is 20, and something else that won't go away under Sark is he's going to use 12 personnel. There might be some years where he uses it more than others, but he wants to have two tight ends on the field in a perfect world. And CJ is 2027 with JT Geraci in the boat now. Is 27 a two tight end class, or do we need to take some more time to let this play out?
You know, I think it's going to be really interesting because after this year, right, you'll probably you won't have to deal with Jack injuries, right? We're too far removed regardless of what he does with his decision. Right. Spencer Shannon will be gone as well. Then you have a decision potentially for Jordan Washington, depending on how big that year goes for him. So I think it's too early to tell right now in the class of 27 because, again, what happens with an Amari Winston or Nick Townsend? Do they just take over this position and that's who's going to be on the field for Texas until Charlie Gillette is ready to take the reins? So I think it's too early to tell altogether. You have yourself a very solid base with the three commits and Gerassi being the latest one.
Yeah, and you've also got an Easton Royal, obviously the big-time wide receiver out of Brother Martin High School in New Orleans, and then Greedy James out of Manville, your one in-state commitment. All right, CJ, any final thoughts on JT Geraci, the class of 2027, or recruiting in general, where it's at right now?
Yeah, I know that we've talked about it in previous episodes over the last couple of weeks or so, but Texas starting to speed up a little bit of what we've known its recruiting calendar to be, right? For the most part, a lot of their takes for the upcoming class happen after its January junior day, in which they get these guys on campus, they get final measurements, they meet the family one more time, and then they kind of lay out a plan of where they want to go as they turn to February. But now up to 3 commits in the class, and right, that's Greedy James, that's Easton Royal, now JT Geraci. I mean, it makes sense when you start looking ahead to other schools in the country starting to speed up its recruiting process. Texas doesn't want to get left behind. Last thing you want is for a kid like Gerassi to say, hey, I felt like I was turned away by the University of Texas. I think this is a good get, and it also just allows you to be entering a new territory elsewhere in the country. I know Texas has gone up to New Jersey previously, Jeff, but this is an area where they spit out a pretty good amount of talented football players pretty often. Gerassi no longer, an unknown in Austin areas. This is quite a get for me.
All right. If you want the up-to-the-minute recruiting information on what's going on the 40 acres, both in the transfer portal and in the high school ranks, get over to ontexasfootball.com. If you're not a member, you can sign up right now using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our recruiting coverage all year round. For CJ, for Matthew behind the scenes producing it, and for the newest member of the 2027 recruiting class for the Texas Longhorns, JT Geraci, the big tight end out of Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey. I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.